Hey, I'm Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, please do hit that subscribe button. And if you find this video useful, hitting that thumbs up or leaving a comment would mean the world to me. I'd really appreciate it. And I'd love to know what you think as well. So this video in particular, I want to talk to you about overdrafts. Now, you might be someone who just occasionally uses your overdraft. You dip into it every now and again. Maybe it's towards the end of the month or a big purchase has come along. But then you get paid and it's fine for the rest of the month or 2 or 3 months until you go into it again. Don't really think of it as much of a problem. Or you might be someone who spends a lot of their time in their overdraft, if not all their time. You might be living in that overdraft. Now, obviously, there are going to be some people who don't use their overdrafts at all as well. But I think across all those different categories, one of the problems you get with overdrafts is people don't really think of it as a debt, because that's exactly what it is. They think of it maybe as an extension of their bank balance. It's money for them to use as and when they want to, and they don't really consider that actually it could be costing them a lot of money. And actually that charge for using an overdraft, it used to be a little bit confusing. It used to depend on which bank you were with, which account you have. You might have a daily overdraft charge that comes along. There might be an interest charge. There might be a combination of them. But it would be difficult to actually work out if one bank was better than the other. So earlier this year, the FCA, who are the regulators of the banks in the UK, they made all the banks change their overdraft charges to a single system. And a single system is an overdraft charge, an interest charge as a percentage. So that would mean, let's say one bank was charging 10%, another one was charging 30%, and you had an overdraft, you'd know that you'd save money, you'd pay less interest on your overdraft by going to the bank which charges 10 rather than 30%. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. But what actually happened in practice was the banks all pretty much hiked their interest charges on their overdrafts to around 40%. Some of them may be down to sort of 35, one or two up as high as 50%. But broadly, if you have an overdraft now with a UK bank, you are going to get charged pretty much 40% give or take. That is huge. That is, if you use your overdraft, suddenly becomes the most expensive debt that you've got. That's higher than any credit card you've got. It's higher than any loan you've got. Unless you're dabbling with payday loans still, and let's face it, we all know not to do that. Maybe the odd catalogue debt, but broadly, an overdraft is now, if you use it, it's your most expensive debt. And that obviously means it's not a good idea to use one. Now, to be fair with these new rules, if you were someone who just dipped every now and again into an overdraft, this now means that you wouldn't get charged those daily charges that come along. You'll just get charged for as long as you're in the overdraft. And if that was a couple of days, you'd probably pay a lot less. But if you're someone who was regularly in that overdraft, then your these sky high fees really could have added to how much it's costing you. But whichever case it is, if you use your overdraft, I think it's well worth avoiding them and only use them now in the case of an emergency. So what do you do if you've got one? How do you clear it? Well, that's what I want to go through in this video. A few simple things that you can do to try and either reduce the cost of that overdraft, so it's less expensive to you, or ideally wipe it out as soon as you can. So the first thing you should be doing if you've got an overdraft right now is to get in touch with your bank and ask them to give you a £500 interest-free buffer. Now, this was part of the measures the government introduced when COVID first came along to try and help us kind of manage our finances. Originally, you could ask for a 3-month interest-free period at £500 and the banks all had to give it to you. Some of them did it automatically. Now they don't have to do it automatically and some of the banks aren't offering it. But if you ask them, they do have to do it. Now, if you've already got one of these, you can ask for a 3-month extension, so that'd be 6 months in total. If you haven't yet asked for it, you've got until the 31st of October 2020 to make that request. And then when you get it, you'll have 3 months from that period. So obviously, if you're struggling right now, do it right now. If you're watching this later on and it hasn't gone past October 2020, then you can still make that request. 3 months, 0% for £500, okay? Really, really good buffer, a good way to kind of help you not get charged those sky high costs that are coming along. Now, beyond that, if you've got more money that you owe, or it's later on and that buffer has disappeared, well, what do you do? Now, again, these offers do come and go, but right now there are a couple of banks that are worth looking at. Nationwide's Flex Direct current account, if you've never had one of these accounts before, will give you a 0% interest overdraft for 12 months. Now, the size of this overdraft will vary. It will pretty much depend on you and your credit history. They'll have a look at it, they'll work out how much they're willing to lend you for that overdraft for a year. But you should hopefully be able to transfer a decent amount, a large chunk of your overdraft over. And again, that 0% period, really, really, really important. So the cost of the overdraft doesn't get more expensive. Any money you put into it is clearing that debt, not going towards the interest charges. If you can't get that account or you've already had it, then Marks and Spencer's Bank will offer you £250 as an interest-free buffer. Not a huge amount, but that might be enough and it could make enough of a difference. First Direct also offers one of these. They haven't had their account open to new customers for a while now during COVID. Hopefully that will change in the coming months. It's worth having a look as well. If there are any others, check out my article where I go through all the different sort of bank accounts available to you, where I've got a list of the best overdrafts. So any new ones that come along or any changes, I will list them there, and I'll put that link below the video. So that's bringing your bank account, switching around, getting your overdraft to 0%. Another option is to look at a money transfer credit card. Now you'll know about 0% balance transfer credit cards, won't you? Where you've got a debt on one credit card, you transfer it over to a new credit card. There's often a fee, a transfer fee between the two, not always, but most of the time. And then on this new card, say the old card was charging you 25%, the new card charges you 0% for a set amount of time. Let's say a year, 18 months, something like that. It means you're not getting charged the interest. Exactly the same with the other ones. Any payments you put on it are going to that debt, to that balance, and not going towards the interest payment. So you can clear it faster. So they're really, really important if you can to get that overdraft down to 0%, whichever way you can. Now, obviously, a balance transfer card is credit card to credit card. Won't work for an overdraft. So what do you do? Well, instead you can look at a 0% money transfer credit card. There aren't that many of these around, but they work in the same way. You get your new credit card, there's 0% money transfer credit card. You transfer the money from to your bank. So let's say it's £1,000. £1,000 from that new credit card clears £1,000 in your overdraft. Fantastic. But you still owe that £1,000, but you owe it to the credit card instead, and it's 0%. So again, you've got that time where no extra interest payments are being charged on top to clear it, to work away at it, chip away. Now again, there will probably be a transfer fee, but it's worth considering that because it's going to be a lot less than that 40% you're probably getting charged on your overdraft. Now, if those don't work for whatever reason, or there's still money you owe and you want to try and get rid of it at a lower rate, you've got a few options. You could consider getting a normal loan. Again, you might be able to get rates which are relatively cheap. Again, it will really just depend on your credit report. If it's not great, you won't get those lowest deals, but you might still be able to borrow some money at a rate which is less than that 40%. So do have a look at the different comparison sites you get online. Find the ones that are best for you. Or you could look at switching to Monzo or Starling, or at least opening an account with them and get an overdraft with them. Now, they do have some of those high interest rates as well. They do have a 35 and a 39% charges on their overdrafts, but they also have lower tiered ones. They have a 25 and 29%, and importantly, they have a 15%, and that's with Starling, or 19%, that's with Monzo. Now, you might not get that cheap rate. It really, again, goes back to your credit report. They will do that credit check, they will look at it, and they will decide whether you get the lower, the middle, or the upper tier, but you might be able to get that lower tier. And again, that 15 or 19% is cheaper than 40%. Not ideal, not as good as that 0%, but it could be something to consider. So now you've got that debt, that overdraft, at 0% in some way. You still owe that money, it's not gone anywhere, but you owe it at a much lower rate. It's about starting to clear it as quickly as you can. So the best way to do this is to treat it as you would any other debt. If you had a credit card, you'd make those monthly payments, wouldn't you? Ideally, as much as you can afford, more than that minimum, but you'd still be making those monthly payments. You know, if you've got a phone on a contract for 12 months, that's a debt. You borrowed money to get that phone and you're paying that back every month. So treat your overdraft in the same way. When your money comes in, your salary comes in, right, go, this amount of money, that is going towards my overdraft debt. Chip away bit by bit, okay? But you've got to think about it differently. It isn't free money. It isn't an extension of your bank account. It is a debt. And that's the most important transformation you can make in your mindset to getting rid of that overdraft faster. You can also thinking about cutting back as much as you can. Now, if you've got 12 months to do it, or 18 months, you don't necessarily have to be so severe. You can work out how much you would need to do to clear it. So let's say you've got £1,200 in that nationwide account and you've got 12 months to pay it off. You need to pay at least £100 into that overdraft every single month. To means that when that year is up, that overdraft is cleared. You don't owe anything at all towards it. Really, really, really simple. Okay, you've got to think about it as a debt. Now you might be thinking, well, where am I going to get this money from? Where's that 100 quid going to come from? Well, partly it's going to come because you're not making those interest payments. Okay, so that's a chunk of it. The rest of it, you might have to cut back. You might need to look at different sort of places where you're spending more than you need to. And I know right now we're all doing that. All of us are kind of really feeling the pinch because of COVID, because of lockdown and everything that's going on, the impending recession. But wherever you can, really, really clear things so you're getting it back. You want to be on that level playing field. You want to be. It's better to have your bank account at zero than be on minus. I know it's obvious, isn't it? I know ideally you want a plus balance, But if you can be zero, at least you're on that kind of level playing field to start off. You're not trying to catch up, because when those charges come back in, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Of course, I know that's not going to be easy. It's not a simple task to do this. The reason you're in your overdraft in the first place is probably because you're struggling, you don't have much money. But give it a go. Do as much as you can so you are getting charged as little as possible when you do get charged on that overdraft. Now, something really important to talk about here are savings, because I know a lot of people, they've got an overdraft, not necessarily a huge overdraft, but they're in their overdraft on one account, but they've also got their savings account sort of sitting over here. And often there's a psychological thing that comes into it. And this is the same for any kind of debt. The savings pot is really, really important, because that is there for emergencies potentially, or something like that. And if that's zero, if there's nothing in your savings pot, what are you going to do? But actually, realistically, you're already in that situation, because if you've got as much in your savings pot as you have in your overdraft, they should cancel each other out. The problem is the overdraft charge is a lot more than what you'll get on your interest. So it's much better moving your savings into your account and wiping out that overdraft and not getting charged any money at all than making a little bit of money and having some savings there for peace of mind. Because if something does go wrong, if the worst does happen, you can always go back into that overdraft. But if that doesn't happen, or until that happens, you won't be getting charged anything for using it, because you're not in there. There's no charge at all. It's almost there if you need it. That should be the emergency. Hopefully, once you've used your savings, you've cleared out of that overdraft, you'll be in a position to keep building that savings up again for when emergencies come along, if they do. But it's much better. I know it can be a bit of a challenge, but it's much better to make that move from your savings over into your overdraft right now. Or whatever the most expensive debt is, but let's face it, that's likely to be your overdraft right now. So I hope that was useful and it makes sense and helps you clear your debts. If you found it useful, please do hit that like button, and of course hit subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Andy Webb, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here are some more videos you might want to check out.